Everyone, just before we start today's episode, I do want to mention it because it is mentioned throughout this episode, and I just want to clear it if there's any confusion. I do mention that the Cultural Spotlight GBM, which is, I say it's going to be taking place this week. It is not. This week is the dance class GBM, which will take place tomorrow on Tuesday. Next week is when the Cultural Spotlight meeting will take place. So I just want to clarify that. And yeah, that's all I wanted to say. And let's just jump right into today's episode. Welcome back, everybody, to the HALO podcast. I am your host, Noe, and welcome back to another episode. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for listening in the other one before. Definitely got some listeners, and hopefully you guys enjoyed that one. And today we got something else for you. But before we get into today's topic, I want to introduce the other host today, because it's not just me, Andrea Cuin. She is the BLP and Rehearsal Coordinator and Trainer for HALO. And she took the time to come and do this recording today. So, Andrea, how are you doing?
I'm doing really good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for taking the time here. So, how has your day been so far?
It's been kind of boring. I got home from work early this morning and had some classes, and then, got to take that nap after the 2-hour classes that you have. So now I'm here.
I get you. I literally took like a 2 or 3 hour nap before I came here. And yeah, that's why I need some pick-me-up. Alani New. Everybody.
I haven't tried it yet.
You haven't tried that one? I usually drink this herbal tea one. I'm going to pronounce the name wrong, so I'm not going to mention it. But I found this because, I don't know, I noticed, this. I usually watch, YouTube. And this one person, I just saw that glimpse of me. Oh, let me try it. And then I just been finding myself drinking it ever since. But it's not bad. I literally tried all the flavors. This is the first one I'm trying. Orange Kiss. It's not bad. But I mean, all in all, they taste the same at some point. But they get the job done, right? They keep
That's what matters.
They keep me awake. Yeah, that's good. Is there anything you got going on for the weekend? Anything coming up for the days for you?
I will say on Friday, Manhattan is actually hosting a brew at the zoo. And that's this Friday. So basically what it is you just buy a ticket and, 21 plus, and you just go and have some brews at the zoo for 3 hours.
Okay.
But of course, the football game, this weekend, I'll be working that, but it'll be a good game. It was a tough loss back at BYU, so.
No, I mean, I'm not a sports person myself, but it's hard not to say the news because, of course, K-State being K-student, of course you can't hear about it. But I never heard of that brewing place. Has that always been there before, or is that a I don't know what it is. Is it a bar?
Yeah, so it's actually an event. So
it's an event.
Yeah,
okay.
So Manhattan hosts or I guess the Sunset Zoo hosts the event, and they just advertise it as a brew at the zoo. So basically, they invite a bunch of brewing companies, and even the ones here locally in Manhattan. They bring them out to the zoo, and then, people buy the tickets to go enjoy the zoo, and then you basically just get to try however many types of brews that you want. Now, me personally, I'm not a brew person. However, now that I'm 21 and exploring, I'm looking for new things to sip on. So I feel like that would be a really great way to kind of get into that. I kind of want to experience the ciders a little bit. I hear good things about them.
Yes. You're speaking from a person that is that's their go-to.
Yeah.
I definitely after this I can give you some recommendations.
Oh, that'd be good.
But yeah, that's cool. I think I work around that time, unfortunately, but I'll see if I can maybe kind of spread the word around. See maybe somebody else can join in. For me, I don't think I have anything else going on other than school. Switch my schedule, my work schedule, so now I can have more times in school, because that's always great. But yeah, other than school and work, there's not really much going on. I'm glad fall's here.
Yeah,
it's getting cold. There's been a slight change. It's getting colder. Weather. I'm putting on my sweats and hoodies. Finally, I've been waiting for this moment. I'm just tired. It's still summer is still piercing out. Today the heat's been going on, but it's trying to linger on. But I just can't wait. But I think it's like mid-October is like when it's like really gonna be like 50s,
Yeah, that's
60s.
probably when it's really gonna start.
So can't wait for that. And it's already gonna be October. Like it's
I
already.
know.
It's
That's
it's
I think that's like
literally.
next week.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Oh.
But yeah, that's definitely gonna be a welcomed thing happening for that for sure. The weather. But yes, so we have our culture spotlight this Tuesday. You guys should definitely go into that. It's in the MSC rooms 204, 205. And yeah, we're just gonna be giving a talk and just a glimpse of the different cultures within Hispanic and Latinx communities. And because, some people, when they just hear like the community itself, maybe they just think of like just one, right? Like maybe, a lot of people would maybe when they hear about that term, they'd be like, oh, Mexican, right? Because like there's just like a lot of that culture like present. And we're going to get a little bit into that. So that is, I already kind of just mentioned, but today's topic is just ties into some what's going to be happening in this upcoming GBM, but culture spotlight. Because as I said before, it's like a lot of people here they just think of like one culture, right? Even though that's not the case. Just many cultures like from Central Latin America. And I want to start off by answering this question. Well, Andrea, like, what do you think of how people can be aware when it comes to that there's more than one culture, right? When they hear about Hispanic Latinx communities, like, do you think there's like, how can we like bring awareness to other people when it comes to that?
That's a really interesting question. Honestly, I think these kind of questions, they're not particularly uncomfortable to answer, but for a lot of people, like they don't really know, I guess, how to go about asking people about the type of culture that they come from and stuff. And even me personally, like I have a hard time differentiating, or even sometimes I'm uncomfortable asking. Like everybody at some point puts everybody under that, oh, you're Mexican, and then that's just it. Like there's so much more that goes behind it. Every quote unquote type of Mexican, we have the Puerto Ricans and Salvadorians and then the Cubans and all of them, and everybody has their own personal like cultures and traditions and foods and dishes and everything. And when you put everybody under that category, like everybody oversees that and they put it all into just one big thing. And it's kind of uncomfortable to ask people like, oh, what they don't want to say what kind of Mexican are you, they don't want to ask that.
Right.
So I think it's kind of like finding a median in terms of like, how can I go about asking, or maybe even like being like, oh, what's your favorite kind of dish, back home? What's your favorite kind of dish traditions back home? I think that might be kind of a medium right there, because, for me, like a tradition that we do is we do the Rosario, Christmas Eve, and we do like the Rosca de Reyes, I think that's what it is.
Okay, yeah.
Come January, I think that's the Three Kings. But, that I know that some other cultures here in the Hispanic community, they don't always do that. That's kind of my dad's from Michoacan, so it's, I would say it's a little difficult. There's an uncomfortable median there, and I don't think a lot of people talk about it because they don't like to say that they're uncomfortable. But I personally like experienced, like, I've definitely been caught in an instance where it's like I stereotype somebody as like the same kind of Mexican as me, and they didn't really know what I was talking about when I was talking to them about like whatever culture or tradition I was talking about, and they're like, I've never heard of that before. And I'm like, really? Like, how have you not heard of it before? Like we're all Mexican or whatever. And they're like, yeah, but I'm not, like, I'm from Cuba or I'm Puerto Rican or something. I'm like, oh. And then I realized that I too have been putting everybody under that same Hispanic stereotype or spotlight that everyone just kind of sees us as. They just kind of group us all together as one, when in reality it's not. It's, I guess, the entirety of it, you could call us that, but all of us have our own individual cultures and traditions, and we want to be seen that way. I think it's just hard for people to try to figure out or ask, or it's uncomfortable for them to ask, where in that spectrum of it do we fall into?
Yeah, definitely. I've done the same thing before, where like I just like assumed, right, that like my Hispanic friend because she's from the Dominican Republic, and this was like Dia de los Muertos
Yeah,
event that we
yeah.
have like during K-State, and me and her were like volunteering for this table, right?
Mm.
And then there's this visitor that came up and just asked us like, hey, like what's Dia de los Muertos? Like they didn't know what it meant, and they want to know, right?
Yeah.
And then I was kind of looking at my friend and like with the expectation that like she was gonna say that, right? Like not because like you can do all the volunteering. It's just like I thought she knew too. But like after the few seconds of silence, then that's when I started explaining it. And then like after that interaction I had with that stranger and they left, I came to a realization and I'm like, wait, she's from like the Dominican Republic, and I'm like, that's Dia de los Muertos is like not that's not really they don't do that type of thing, right?
Yeah.
Over there. And I was like, oh my god, like I just assumed, and then I was like, oh well, I didn't even realize I did that till like shortly after, right? And it's like,
Yeah.
and yeah, so it's like I think that's a really common thing among Hispanic Latinx people that especially like if you're always surrounded by just like one culture, so like Mexicans,
Yeah.
and we all have like similar things, you like similar things, right? That we eventually just kind of put into our head of like, oh, I think any other person that's around like my environment, they should know this too, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it's like, but no, after every now and then you get those checks. I was like, oh wait, not everybody is, right? Especially here in a university, because like students from all over the world, right? So it's like yeah, even myself, I was like, oh wow, like I realized like that's not their thing, right? That's just like my culture, because like I have a Mexican background, right? Because my parents are from Guanajuato, Mexico. And yeah, and I think we don't really, at least in my family, we don't really touch on that too much in terms of like celebrate it or whatnot,
Yeah.
as far as I remember. But I think we do just like we don't forget those people that we lost, right? Because that's what it's all about with that tradition, with the culture. And but yeah, I think what you just mentioned earlier is like, I think a good way to kind of approach it is just like find a way to how we can just make it more broadly. So you mentioned like asking, oh, what's your favorite type of dish and food? Because like that's like a great way to bring people together, right? And just to get different ways. And like
food is a great way to bring people
right
together.
It's like
doesn't even matter what kind it is. It's
like,
good
like,
regardless.
Who doesn't love
yeah.
food, right? And then, yeah, I think that's a great way to do it, because it's just like you can get many answers on that, right? And like you can go in so many ways, and just yeah, and just have a conversation of that. And so I think that's a great way to kind of go about it. Here, let's see. I think another way that we can approach it as well is in a sense is of like and this might be hard if like you're in an environmental community that is just like one culture, right, of the Hispanic Latinx. But maybe you can, maybe if you like watching, I don't know, maybe YouTube creators, or listen to a specific podcast, or like things that are like the internet, it's like such broad that you can listen to podcasts from like other countries and stuff like that. Maybe you can start listening to or getting into somebody that has like a Puerto Rican background or a Cuban background, because I'm sure there's many podcasting people over there across Latinx in Central America. But because we're here in the U.S. and like social media here, how the algorithm works and stuff like that, it just gives us just that, right? Just like whatever is in our country, our state, our city, right? It's just gonna give us that. And then like, of course, it's like, it's weird how social media works. It's like, oh, like I like pizza, and then I look at my phone, it's like, here's this Pizza Hut ad. It's like, it's so spot on sometimes.
Oh, they're definitely
but like,
listening. Yeah, they're definitely checking that.
yeah. But it's but yeah, I think we can just like, I don't know, every now and then maybe switch it up and be like, oh, maybe I'm gonna listen to. And this is just an example, but like someone a creator that does maybe a podcast or maybe YouTuber or whatnot that has that background, right? And then you can learn some of the like their culture just by listening, and they don't have to like have their podcast be about like their culture or whatnot. It might be, but that's maybe another way that you can just approach it into how I don't know, just know that there's just more than one culture, right?
And of course we have TikTok and all of those media platforms to thank for that, because when you always see like the memes and the reels of them making jokes about like, oh, if you're Mexican when, or I always see stuff about like, Mexicans know how it feels to wake up to Jenny Rivera on a Saturday at 7 a.m. because their dad or their mom is cleaning and stuff. And I'm just like, yeah, like that was a thing for me. But then I've also definitely met people who don't know who Jenny is, or they're like, they woke you up at 7 a.m. like to clean. And I was like, they didn't for you. And then again, like, that's what it is it's just falling under the stereotype that, oh, I did that, so everybody else must have done that. And so I definitely think that the media, and especially TikTok, with the videos and how famous and popular it is now, that definitely contributes to everybody going under that stereotype.
Yeah, for sure. And some people not even be aware that, like, maybe the artists, the songs they're listening to, they have, like, some Latin Central America background, like Shakira, she's Colombian, I think.
Yeah, she's Colombian.
Yeah, and then Karol G is, I don't think she somewhere in Latin America. I might be wrong.
Yeah, I'm not sure on her,
but no, it's like and then some people, and it's just surprising. Oh, I didn't know she's from Colombia, even though, like, I listen to her, and then, like, I just assume because like she does a lot of music and people listen to the same thing. But it's like, even, like, you can just if you just look a bit closely of, like, some of the things that maybe some of the public figures you like or the music, you can just be like, oh wow, I didn't know that the music that I listened to for years, like, this person was from this place, right? Mm-hmm. So that's, like, another way that they could come into realization. But another thing I want to ask too, it's with speaking about this, like, do you think that it's always been this way, that people just, like, always came to the assumption, like, oh, like, Hispanic Latinx community is just, oh, Mexican right away, or when you think there was, like, a point of time to where we got to that point, like maybe once, like, we got a lot of, like, people from Mexico immigrating to the U.S., like, maybe that's when the turning point of, like, people just got used to, like, okay, it's always Mexican, right? When they talk about it, do you think it's always been that way, or, like, what do you think about that? I think, we might have talked about this a bit before in one of the previous episodes we done, but the first one actually that we done, into where there was a certain point to where there are statistics to where we see, like, a lot of, like, the immigrants were coming from Mexico, right? Mm-hmm. And a big factor of that is that it's literally right below us. Like, mm-hmm. Mexico's right below us, right? And so that probably has to do a big contribution to why, like, that culture is very present in the U.S., right? Mm-hmm. And so I don't know when exactly. I got the timelines kind of messed up in my head, so I don't know the exact point. But I think once we started to have that like, there's, like, more immigrants coming to the U.S. and, like, Mexicans, right? Because, like, compared to, like, Latin America and Central America, like, because Latin America is, like, a separate, it's not connected to the U.S., so, like, they have to do much travel, like, either by plane or, like, maybe, I don't know, across the sea somehow, and it takes more effort for them to immigrate over here than it does, like, compared to U.S., right? Mm-hmm. And we can see that with the statistics and some of the things that we talked about. If you're curious about it, you can listen to the first episode, listeners, that the right side of the country is more populated with, people from the Dominican Republic, mm-hmm. and, like, other or Cubans or whatnot, right? Because it's, like, even though Latin America's not right on the right side of it, but that's kind of, like, the area that they're coming mm-hmm. from. But I think that because I've grown up, like, in a Mexican household and people with similar background, it's hard for me to, like, kind of answer the question of, like, when did that turning point come? Maybe as far as I know, I have to ask, like, my parents or my older brother, but I think that, It's hard to answer this question because it's, like, I want to say that, like, maybe, like, when I was, like, 2010 or whatnot, but then, like, 2010 I was, like, still a preteen teenager. I wasn't fully developed, so maybe there were some things that I missed out and didn't pay attention because you're a kid, like, you don't know that much, right? Geez, I don't know.
Yeah, I would say it's really hard to answer the question because we weren't really there when everything really started. Like,
right.
It got more attention as we've gotten older because people have had the courage to say something now. Mm-hmm. But I definitely think it's always kind of been there in the beginning, especially when they first were allowing the immigrants to come over. Mm-hmm. None of the people here in the U.S., they didn't like the idea of that. They've seen us as a problem. They've seen us as people who had addictions or brought, drugs and, just bad things over here. Like, they didn't. And then, of course, the whole, they're taking our jobs, blah, blah, this, blah, blah, that. Mm-hmm. So I think us just coming from the country below, the U.S., just coming from Mexico, mm-hmm. that's where they all just kind of integrated us into where all of us fall under this specific category because we come from Mexico, so we're all Mexicans, and everybody that comes up from the South falls underneath that stereotype, and they're all the same. And and nowadays, like, now it's a little different. People understand that, okay, they need us up here, like, they really do. And and when I was growing up, my dad, he came here at a really young age, and he's always worked. Like, he's always worked. He's always done his part, coming up here and whatnot. And I even remember, like, being younger and, like, we would go out, or, like, if me and my dad, like, I would work with him, sometimes just some daddy-daughter time. I remember, like, going out with him, or, like, we would go and have lunch or something, and, like, people would always look at him weird. Or, I remember one time he was trying to, like, return a DVD or something because like, the box had already been opened and it had been scratched, and we didn't realize it till we got home. And they didn't believe him because, like, my dad's still not very fluent. He has a really thick accent, even in English. And I just remember them, like, not believing him. Like, I'm I'm little, but, like, I'm standing there and I'm, like, watching them look at him weird. I'm watching them, call for somebody, like a manager or something, like, at the guest service desk. And, like, he's frustrated because he can feel the tension. He can feel them, like, judging him. And, like, at the time, like, I didn't really, like, quite understand what was going on, but, like, I knew, like, it was, like, kind of off. And, like, now being older, like, I bet it was hard for him. Like, it's heartbreaking to think of now, like, I couldn't be, a consolation person for him. So I definitely, like, now looking back, like, I definitely remember seeing things like that. It's definitely gotten better now, and, we're from a small town, so the people, like, everyone knows everybody now. But there in the beginning, like, it was definitely hard. And I bet a lot of people, like, just across the globe, and even here at K-State, like, I bet they've seen similar things with their parents, or maybe even themselves have had experiences like that. So, yeah, I would say it's a hard question. I think it's, like I said, I think it's always kind of been that way, and I think it's just now starting to get maybe just a little bit better. But that's because we're not afraid to say anything, and because we've grown up seeing it from both sides, and so now we have the ability to say something about it, as far as discussing our concerns, but then also seeing it from the other side as well. So I think we have a really good like, widespread scope on the information, as far as, like, coming at it, full force and head on, like, trying to figure out a way to get around it, or trying to, just kind of fight through it so that it's not a problem anymore, so that, everyone can be comfortable in, the country that everybody talks so great about. So, yeah.
No, yeah. I can relate a bit in terms of, like, because, like, my parents also experienced some of those things, right, to where they looked at him weird. And, like my parents are, like, one of the strongest people I know. Like, they had to, like, because they immigrated, from Mexico, they crossed the border, and they always, like, I'm pretty sure around those early days, like, they had to, like, put up a front, because they're always, like, for the most part in their lives, like, approached by authorities, right? And that does something to you, like, over time. And then it's like, and now, like, after, times when they integrated, nothing specific comes to mind to me, but I'm sure, like, maybe several times my parents probably went through similar situations to where my parents, they don't really speak the language well. Like, they know some words, right, but they don't really speak it much of that. And then I'm sure, because, like, when every Hispanic family, like, when they first immigrate and they have kids, like, they rely on their kids, right, for translation. And I'm sure, like, there has been some instances to where, like, they saw that, because this is, like, early 2000s, right?
Yeah.
It's like they saw, like, some of that stuff kind of come into them, and, like, kind of, like, oh, like, they're just doing this. I feel uncomfortable, like, even though, like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know the language. And it's just, like, it's just some of the hardships that, like, our parents, our family, the older generations, right? Like, our ancestors and stuff like that. And again, and it has changed, right? It has gotten better, but, like, there is still work to be done.
Yeah,
right,
of
for
course.
sure.
I think there always kind of will be, and it's unfortunate to say that, but there's always something that's gonna need to be done. There's always going to be an issue that needs to be addressed, and I think overall, like, that's what kind of helps our community and in the world. I think that's what helps it evolve, is just tackling an issue as it comes, and over time, maybe it won't be particularly pertain to just this, but I definitely think that it's all part of the growth. It's all part of the development and the evolving of the world and the community and everything like that. So.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Do you know anyone, or do you have any friends that are from other countries, Hispanic countries? Do you know anybody?
I mean, I definitely have, like, my people here in HALO, and there's a few of them that I still keep in touch with from our very first years being here as freshmen, and all of us first entering HALO, and some of us are still here, and some of us still pop up here and then at the HALO meetings, or, I see them around campus. As far as back home, like I said, we come from a small town now. It was mostly just people, like I said, my dad's from Michoacan, so we had, like, a lot of people who were from that general area because they all kind of came over here together, so they all kind of, like, stuck together and was, like, kind of working their way around, down to where we are now. But I did grow up with Guatemalans growing up, and I didn't realize, like, that we were two completely different, types of Mexicans. And that was, I remember, like, finding out when I was talking to my mom about it, and my mom's, like, full white, and, but she understands all the cultural differences, and I didn't until I think I was talking to her one time about me being related to one of them or something, and she was like, "You guys aren't related." She's like, "They're not." She's like, "They're not from Michoacan," and I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" I was like, "They." I'm young. I was like, they all kind of look like dad, they're all, and she's like, "No, they're Guatemalan." And I was like, "Is that not the same thing?" And she's like, "No, they're actually two completely different things." And I remember being like, "Oh, I did not know that." And so, we have, like, our side of the town where there's a lot of Guatemalans and a lot of Guatemalan families, and then there's our side of the town where a lot of them are from Michoacan or within that general area. So I remember just, like, seeing or hearing that from her, and I was just like, I did not know that. I didn't know, because we're all friends and we all, like, integrate. Like, there's no, like, we don't speak on those differences. Like, we all celebrate, like, each other's, like, birthdays or traditions. Like, everyone's always invited to everything. And so because of that, I think that's why it was kind of integrated. So nobody really asked the question, like, where are you from? Where are your whereabouts of, Mexico or Central America? And so, and a part of that is good, like, we don't stereotype or, like, kind of, like, put a barrier in between that because we come from different areas of Central America. But at the same time, I can see, like, where the confusion comes from. Like, no one really talks about it. It's just kind of like, in a way, we're all family. We all care about each other. We all have relatively the same values and everything. So that, family is important, and celebrations and traditions and everything. Like, those are all very big values and aspects of our culture. And so I think that's where some of the confusion comes in. And then it's also like, well, it's also like the uncomfortable area of, like, well, who's gonna ask? Who's gonna say something about, oh, this isn't how we do it? Who's gonna say it first? It's kind of that. No one wants to be uncomfortable. No one wants to bring tension to the room. But unfortunately, I think that's kind of one of the only ways to just kind of, I don't know, for those who want to like separate their cultures as, as what it is and not be integrated with another one. I think that's kind of how that's going to have to go. It's just being like, well, my culture doesn't really do that. It's interesting that yours does, but this is kind of what we do. And then just putting that small barrier, nothing, defensive or, to be offended by anything. But if you want to be seen that way, then you have to put it out there. And, you don't have to put it out there rudely or anything. Just if you want to make it known, you're the one that has to make it known. You can't rely on other people to do that. You know what I mean? So I would say, yeah, I definitely have quite a few friends from different areas, and quite honestly, I don't even know where all of them, reside. I know where a few of them. I do have one who's Puerto Rican, and her and I get along great, and, we haven't really had, like, any trouble or anything. I knew that she was, just from, like, our initial introductions and stuff, like, we introduced who ourselves were and where our parents were from and kind of where we reside and stuff like that, and that was cool and that was fine. So, like, I knew early on that she was from Puerto Rico, but I didn't really know what all that entailed. Like, a part of me is kind of like ashamed in a way because I've been kind of ignorant. Like when I hear like, oh, you're Puerto Rican, oh, yeah, you know, you're Mexican, oh, we're similar. Like I'm ignorant. I'm a little ignorant in that way, but it's also because it's just that uncomfortable area of like asking like, oh, do you mind telling me like what the difference in that is? Like what exactly is the difference between Puerto Rican and then me being from Michoacan? Like I just, you know, where's that barrier at? So a part of that, you know, does fall on me, and it honestly falls on a little bit of everybody, you know, like we don't ever really go into depth about like, oh, tell me more about your side of the culture, and then I can help differentiate that from mine. So, yeah, it's kind of uncomfortable, like I said, but yeah.
No, yeah, I think we need to be, at least to an extent, like be comfortable with the uncomfortable, right? Because it's like if no one's gonna ask, like no one, it's not gonna be aware, right? No one's gonna bring it up. Like if you're like the only one, say within a group of like that culture, and you're wanting to like have that spoken up, and even though it does like seem intimidating or not, but like I think it's also, at least to me, how I view, I think it's like empowering, right? To like step up and like just like, hey, like I know it's like we have like similar things about this, but like I'm from like, this is my culture, and like here are the differences, right? And like again, that could be an uncomfortable conversation, but I think it is needed if we're wanting to make that distinction from different cultures, right? And it's a way for also that I think it could bring us closer together, because like some people are like, oh, I didn't know some of that stuff, or like, oh, like I, you know, and again, because like, you know, we all do it, right, to an extent. It's like we just assumptions, right? Like, oh, like you must know this, you must know that, right? Like I don't need to make that distinction, but I think it's a conversation needed, right? And we are having those conversations, but like there's so much that we need to learn. Like there's so much I need to learn, even though like I myself, like I mentioned it earlier, like I have a person that she's from the Dominican Republic. You know, I haven't really asked much of her culture, but like I'm, you know, wanting to know more things and stuff like that, because like I don't know if I'm gonna be saying this right, or because like just real quick here, my mom, like when she, you know, we had those, my mom, she cleans like every Saturday when I was a kid, and like I hated it, right? But she always has like a playlist. Yeah. Like one of the things that would come on was these two artists, I think Monchi and Alexandra. Okay. Like Éxitos y Más is like bachata music. Yes. I think it's like from 2007. And I'm pretty sure they're from the Dominican Republic. I hope I'm not getting that wrong. Listeners, like, bear with me. If I get that wrong, I will fact check myself. I probably should have done it before here. But no, that brings up nostalgia. And then I remember, like, I shared it to her, like, hey, like, I just like, hey, I like this music. And then, you know, she acknowledged it. And then I was, cause, I don't know, I just wanted to know if she listened to it or not, because she's from that
she's
area.
From the region, yeah.
Right. And so, but no, it's like, literally, I found that playlist, or that came up just when I was listening to music out of nowhere, and it just brought nostalgia, because it brought me back, like, man, like literally every track on this album is fire. like my teenage self probably was like, what the hell am I listening to? Like, I don't want to listen to this and clean up. Yes, at the same time. I
definitely remember being like that.
It's like, I think it's like, maybe some can relate, listeners, but like I think to an extent, it's like, it's weird to where like, in kids, we don't like this stuff like that because maybe we have fully developed, but then like next thing you know, we're in our 20s, and then like we're out here dancing to like banda, or like you know, cumbia, and like these different ones, and like oh, now I know what dad and mom was like talking about. Like this stuff is like good. Yeah, right?
I remember. Yeah, I used to always like get on to my dad. Like he likes the Los Angeles Azules, and they're an older group, and there's just like music that he'd play, or he'd always play like the banda videos, and like it always like shows like the band singing, and then like there's always some drama going on with a guy and a girl, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like what is this song even about? Like they all like, I was like, Dad, this song, like I don't even know what he's saying. I was like, why are we listening to this? Like it sounds like the other sound or the other music or whatever. And he was like, oh, don't worry about it. He's like, just listen to it, it's good. And I was like, whatever. But like here I am, like, you know, cleaning or even just driving, like I'm out there like feeling it in my soul, because like now I can understand what the music's saying, like, right. And you know, I don't relate to all of it, but it's just like like
You feel it.
Yes, I feel that. And so I think it's funny because there was a time where he came up here to visit me, and I was playing like music in my car, and it was music that he used to listen to, and he was like, "When did you start listening to this?" And I was like, it just popped up. I can't let him have all the glory of letting him know that I definitely took his music and that I listen to it all the time now. But yeah, I think that's really interesting too, because I definitely catch myself doing that a lot.
No, yeah, it's like, my dad, like I remember when I was in his car, like he would just play the radio, and it's that like one, Spanish radio that just kept playing like those music, and then like now every time when I go back to my hometown and like me and my mom go out to eat breakfast, and she's like, "Ponen la canción, ponen la music," because she knows like now I'm like tuned into it, right?
Yeah.
And we listen to the same music. But no, I think that's just like a I don't know what's that term. Like it goes full circle or whatnot.
Yeah,
It's
yeah. It makes
now
full circle,
like now it's just like now I'm grown into it, right? And then
Yeah.
who knows, like whoever I maybe to my younger siblings, maybe I'll bestow upon this tradition, even though it's not really a tradition, but
Yeah.
but no, I think it's an interesting change to where like once you realize it, I was like, wow, I didn't mess with it first, but now I'm like, okay, I get it. Now we are getting to the end here, but I just want to ask you, Andrea, just a question here, because for me, I think one thing that I've enjoyed like growing up, and I thought my mom knew how to make these or not, but again, it's not part of the culture. I'm pretty sure I might be getting this wrong, but it's like from El Salvador or Honduras or both, but pupusas.
I've heard of them. Yeah.
Yeah, fire. Really good. There's this one restaurant in KCK. The name is blanking, but they make some like so good pupusas. And there's another one like 5 minutes away from my parents' house, but like I mean that's like if I want to like something quick, but if I want like quality pupusas, I go there. And then I could have sworn like my mom made it like at one point, like she made I don't know when, and I remember like the next time I told her to make it, this was like when I was like a teen, and she would look at me, she was like what you mean, like she was like not gonna make it, and I was like, why not? And then I was like, oh, well, that's not really something a part of like my culture, so maybe that's why she was. But I know I'm not going crazy. I know she made it one day. Maybe she was experiencing or whatnot that time.
Yeah.
But no, but I just remember like it had to happen like when I was a teenager, to where my parents just like took me to, I don't know if that was this specific restaurant that I'm mentioning now, but they just took me to there, and then I was just hooked ever since then. It's like pupusas, revoltas. It's like everything mixed in, bean, cheese, and like pork. Is like there's different ones, but like that's like my go-to. Like I have like a good 3, and then like I'm full.
You said I have a good 3.
Is there any maybe food or anything that stands out to you from other like Latin cultures that like maybe it doesn't have to be food, but anything that stands out that you maybe particularly find interesting?
Honestly, it's kind of hard to say. I'm a real big fan of pan dulce. Oh my gosh, you can put a plate in front of me, I will tear it up live. Like it is so good. And like I said, like I was talking about earlier in the podcast, a part of me is like a little shamed because of like my ignorance, or a lot of it's just like I'm just not, I don't want to say educated. I don't know a lot about like where all the cultures differentiate, because then again, I came from a small town. Like all of us kind of relatively knew the same dishes, the same desserts and stuff like that. Like there's the tres leches, there's the conchas, and other stuff like that. But it's just like a part of me also just doesn't know the differences between all of that. Like what of the pan dulces are from my region, and then what of the pan dulces or dishes are from different regions, like, the Dominican Republic or, Puerto Rico or Cuba. And actually recently the Base Latina, they had their informational meeting, and my co-coordinator, Melanie, she's Cuban, if I'm not mistaken. And she made these pastries. I forgot what they're called, but
empanadas? Are they empanadas?
No, they weren't empanadas. They were
okay.
There was some kind of like guava pastry.
Oh, okay.
And she went and got like this specific, because we went and grabbed all the ingredients and everything together, and she went and bought this dough. It was a specific dough, and then she went and got some guava paste, and she made them, and she had told me what they were, and I was like, I wonder if I've ever had them before. But then like I seen them, and I was like, I've never had those, and they were so yummy. Now I do know that those were a Cuban dish because she made them. She wanted to bring a part of her culture with her to the informational reading, and I thought that was super awesome. And after she did that, like I had to realize, I was like, I wouldn't know the differences between the pan dulces and where they originate from because, a lot of the restaurants around here, or I guess not really restaurants, but we do have like a couple Mexican stores here, Hispanic stores here, and, in Casey, there's a little bit around, just kind of spotted. But like they don't ever really say where pan dulces originate. They all just are sold, a variety of them are just sold in the bakeries because there's all different kinds of us out there, and they want to be able to include everybody, and that's part of the culture, is like including everybody. Like everybody's welcome, everybody is welcome to eat, everybody come eat at the table, everybody come have a piece of the culture. So I think our inclusivity and being Hispanic is a big part of like why people are confused and why we make the assumptions, is because we've always just put everything together. Like I said, the pan dulce, they have all of the varieties in there in the bakeries, and they don't ever differentiate, I guess, where they're from. And, they don't particularly have to.
Right.
But that's a part of where the confusion comes in, and that's kind of where it has been for me because, like I said, I don't really know the differences between the pan dulces in terms of, like, where they come from, where they originate from, and stuff like that. So I hate to say that, like, I'm ashamed or that I'm ignorant, but that's just how it is. Like, I don't know what it is, and I do feel bad that I don't know, and it makes me want to look more into it. But yeah, I'd say it's difficult for me to say, like, I don't know particularly like the difference in dishes and stuff, and but yeah, I would say pan dulce is like my thing, like that is my go-to, but I couldn't give you unfortunately, like I couldn't give you like the region in which they originate from, or I'd say conchas are like it, and then there's another pan dulce, I don't know what it is, I've never been able to figure out what it was called. But it's like a pastry, and it's filled with like strawberry or piña, and it has like cuts on the top of it, and then it's sprinkled with like some little bitty like sugar sprinkles. I have yet to figure out what it is. There's only one place I've ever been able to find them, and that was in Tulsa, Oklahoma, at a bakery there. But I haven't been able to find them anywhere else, so I don't know what they're called. But those are my favorite. So I guess if any of the listeners know what it's called and they want to reach out to me and tell me what it is, that would be super awesome because I cannot figure it out. But yeah, I'd say that.
Yeah, I think like you kind of have to know before you even go into like the pastry to even know like oh, this is from this specific culture or whatnot, right? And it's like, man, I really missed out on that BLP committee meeting, because I wish I would have had some of that guava pastry.
Oh gosh, it was so good. I bet if you asked Melanie, she'd make you some more. She enjoyed baking them. She was really excited to do that. Yeah, they're really good. You'd have to ask who was there.
All right, I'll have to reach out and see if she can hook me up. But yeah, that is gonna wrap it for today's episode. Andrea Cuin, thank you so much for joining today's episode. It was a pleasure having you. So thank you so much for listening. You can follow our Instagram. It is KSU_HALO. And then the different platforms you can listen to this podcast is Spotify and YouTube. But we are currently working on other platforms such as like Apple Podcasts. So stay tuned in for that. Andrea, is there any final thoughts you want to say to the listeners?
Yeah, I have a few final thoughts. So as you guys know, I'm the Base Latina Pageant Coordinator for the rehearsals, and I'm also their trainer. I will say that our applications to be a contestant, part of the planning committee, and then also an MC for the pageant are currently open. Their due dates are going to be November 1st for planning committee and contestants, and then I believe it's November 29th for MC applications. But those are open, and I'm always looking to see where our new applicants are. Everything is first come, first serve. So I'm super excited to see who signs up.
All right. Well, there you go, listeners. Make sure you look out for that and tune in on the next episode as always. And yeah, that's all we got for you. So until then, we'll see you on the next one.